Imagine waking up in 1692 Salem. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and you can't wait to start your day. You go into town smiling and ready to purchase your goods you need for the week, and you can tell something's a bit off, mostly with the townspeople. They are avoiding you and won't make eye contact. Then, all of a sudden, you hear the one word that will send a shiver down your spine.
Witch!
You look around and realize they mean you. You know the horrible things that are about to happen because you have seen what they do to others. Today, we are going to talk about the Salem Witch Trials of 1692. I'm Chesh,
I'm Jesse.
I'm Laura.
And I'm the Jericho.
and welcome to Reconfiguring Reality.
I know Chesh normally doesn't do any kind of homework assignments when it comes to the
Yep,
podcast.
I do
So,
know a little bit about this topic.
what do you know about this topic?
So I know that a lot of the reasons, so again, we know that they burned witches, or beat them or did some type of like horrible torture, like tying a cinder block to their feet, and if they floated, they were a witch. If they drowned, well, they're dead
Okay,
at
all
that
of that
point.
is actually not true.
I know. Again, like I said, I know a little bit. The factual stuff that I know is that a lot of the reasons why women were considered witches was back then they technically weren't allowed to own like property and land and everything like that. So if their husband died, they would get the property, I believe if they had like a son or some shit like that. And most people, men, wanted the property, so they would sit there and claim witch so that the county, state, whatever you want to call it, or person would get that property. And again, the family that was there or the woman that was there that owned it would no longer be around to have the property. That's like the lamest terms.
That was actually not a thing for the Salem Witch Trials.
Oh, that must have been a different thing.
Must have been. Yep, because we have males and females accused of being witches in Salem in 1692.
Mm-hmm.
And it started. Jericho, do you know how it started?
What, the witch trials in general, or specifically in Salem? Because
The
witch trials are
Salem
not a
Witch
new thing
Trials,
to Salem.
specifically the Salem Trials of
Oh,
1692.
I think mine were like in general in other places, not specifically Salem. At
Yeah,
least
because
what I
most of the witches that were burned, I
Nope,
think didn't
burnt
have
witches.
or hung. Sorry, hung.
Witches
Um,
were disposed of in a lot of different ways.
yeah,
Specifically
hmm
in this trial, though, yes, they were not burned at the stake.
but a lot of them I don't think were married or had children or anything like that. They were considered outsiders in the population.
Well, like the ones I learned
Population.
about, like it wasn't specifically Salem, but again, the ones I learned about were, they did whatever, but it was mainly to get the land because they didn't want women to have land.
Okay, and Jess, it may have started out that they were accusing homeless people and not well off people, but they actually got some married couples and some children in there.
Oh,
And
not the
there were 30
children.
people were found guilty, 19 of whom were executed by hanging, 14 women and 5 men. One other man, Giles Corey, died under torture after refusing to enter a plea, and at least 5 people died in the disease-ridden
Prison.
jail without trial.
Yep, the prisons. Yep. There's a mad amount of people accused.
That is really alarming. You know what I mean? Because if you think about village sizes, they're not
Oh,
like cities.
I have to point out that not all the people were from Salem that were accused.
Okay. You're talking like travelers, people passing through and things like that?
No, I'm talking Andover and other towns
Topsfield.
around Salem.
Oh.
Topsfield, yep, Beverly. And it was really confusing because Salem was separated into two places. It was Salem Town and Salem
Mm-hmm.
Village.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes, so this began in Salem Village. But going back to my original question, Jericho, do you know what started the Salem Witch Trials of 1692?
I do not.
Jesse?
Last I remember, it had something to do with like a mold.
A mold?
So
Like
what they were,
fungus?
so what they used to think was that the
Oh.
reason why they had issues and they had seizures and stuff like that was because they ate bread that had this specific kind of mold on it.
Mm-hmm.
So so they sat there and they did like several tests on it or something to at least start it because there were what girls accused a certain witch.
Yeah, okay. So let's back it up just a little bit before that and go into 1690 when Reverend Samuel Parris was elected as the Reverend of Salem Village. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so he's new to the area. He's there with his family, and one night his daughter is having a sleepover with a family friend. His daughter is Elizabeth or Betsy Parris, and the friend is Abigail Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And the two girls fell into fits, seizures, coughing, sweating, you know,
Yeah.
all
Mm-hmm.
that fun stuff. And the doctors, after examining these girls, didn't know what was wrong with them, so they claimed witchcraft. So the girls pointed their finger at three people in Salem Village: Tituba, Sarah Osborne, Sarah Osborne, and Sarah Good. Tituba was their servant. Sarah Osborne and Sarah Good, I believe one of them was homeless, and I don't know about the other one. But she was a not well to do person, you know.
Safe to say they probably weren't friends and they were just probably the outcasts of the group, kind of.
Right, right. Yes. In fact, I think one of them, let me.
Because if you're saying one is you said a family servant, the other one was a
Tituba
homeless
was the
girl.
servant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would assume that the second girl most likely was not well known with the family or friendly with the family, so she must have been some sort of outcast of their group if they're in the
I,
same age range.
if I remember correctly, I believe it was Sarah Osborne was actually uh, accused of witchcraft in another city before all of this happened, but was
So,
found
okay.
innocent of being a witch.
Well, see, Sarah
So
Good was the daughter of a well-to-do tavern owner. So she
I thought she was homeless though.
in 1672 her dad committed suicide. His 70-acre was valued around 500 pounds and he left no will at the time that his death. They were in a land dispute around Salem. The estate was
Mm-hmm.
divided mostly between his widow and two sons. When Abigail, yeah, blah blah blah. The young girl asserted they had been bitten, pinched, and otherwise abused while they had fits. Sarah was a lower economic status, reduced to poverty due to the. Okay, so she was from a well-to-do family, but
Yep.
because her father didn't leave a will, she was
They
on.
pretty much
Yeah.
ousted her.
They at one point accused Sarah's daughter of being a witch as well.
Hmm.
They also asked Sarah Good's daughter, Sarah Good now, they asked her daughter if mommy was a witch. Her daughter Dorothy was 4 years old. And
She'd
this,
say yes.
yes, she said mommy is a
Well, she
witch.
probably didn't
Yes.
understand like that witch was I mean,
They obviously did not give a fuck.
yeah, to ask a 4-year-old who doesn't have the understanding, I would assume to be like, "Hey, witch is bad. I don't want to say that about mommy."
Right.
Well, I mean, let's hold on now for a second to play devil's advocate, right? The time frame is much different than the modern world we live in now. So witches and superstition were huge back then. No one ever was like, it's a good thing to be a witch. There wasn't Glinda the Good Witch. There wasn't any white witches. There wasn't any of that stuff in normal society, especially Christian society. It was
Mm-hmm.
the devil, 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 evil, evil, evil. So their daughter would have grown up, presumably, on stories of that. It's much more likely that she did understand what a witch was, at least in a basic concept, than the nuances of whatever. Now, could her mother have been, like a healer, right? And because the
Mm-hmm.
townspeople called that a witch, or her dad
More of an
called that a witch,
apothecary.
yeah, something like that, that could be possible, right? Um, but I don't think they just asked some random kid who was like, sure, she's a whatever, right? Like,
It's also important to point out that the whole of Salem Village was a Puritan community, so it is very Christian in the Bible, abide by the Bible type area,
Mm-hmm.
which
live by
goes
the
back,
Bible, die by the Bible.
yeah, pretty much. So, both Sarah's and Tituba were interviewed and sent to Boston prison. And both Sarah's professed their innocence, but Tituba admitted she confessed to being a witch. And then
Interesting.
she told the quote unquote courts
Mm-hmm.
that there was a whole like a whole community of witches that they didn't know anything about, and she would help them get these witches so that they could all be interviewed. She would name these witches so they would be interviewed. So Tituba helped unleash this whole hunt for the witches of Salem. That was around March 3rd, 1692.
So what they believe, uh, so proposed 284 years after all this happened, it's convulsive ergot poisoning, which ergot is actually, yes, not something that is supposed to be consumed in masses.
And that's what all these people were coming down with?
Yeah, the girls, at least two of them. They think a couple of the other ones that started to accuse jumped on the bandwagon
Uh-huh.
when, yeah.
There were other people afflicted at the same like around this time.
Mm-hmm.
But those two were the ones that started this whole shebang. And I think it's mainly because it was the Reverend's daughter. And he
Mm-hmm.
was probably like, thinking, how the hell did I let the devil into my house? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, you think like if it was anybody else's home that wasn't of like a high standing, they probably would have just been like believed by some and then kind of shunned by others in a sense.
And then, because, yeah, starting March 1st, and then in March, there were others that were accused. There's Martha Corey, uh, Dorothy Good, which is, I believe, Sarah
Sarah's
Good's
4 year old
daughter.
daughter,
Yeah.
yep. 4 year
Rebecca,
I'm just gonna keep pushing that 4 year old
four.
daughter.
4-year-old, yeah.
Yeah.
A
Rebecca
little
Nurse.
girl.
And then in nearby Ipswich,
Huh?
Rachel Clinton was. So Martha Corey had expressed
Skepticism.
yes, about the credibility of the girls' accusations and thus drawn attention. The charges against her and Rebecca Nurse were deeply troubling the community because Corey was a converted member of the church, and Nurse was,
She was a lifetime member and she was 71 freaking years old.
yeah, and Rebecca Nurse was also in the Church of Salem. If such upstanding people could be witches, the townspeople thought, then anybody could be a witch.
I mean,
That's
yeah, that's
just
kind of the idea.
that's what kind of throws me a bit is you have somebody like you said was 70 something years old, has been a part of the church pretty much their entire life that you can be aware of or know of. And then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, I've known you for your whole life. You're a witch." Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the one in Ipswich, the Rachel Clinton, she was arrested for witchcraft at the end of March on independent charges unrelated to the affliction of the girls.
Huh.
So that
Someone
she had
probably
other,
named her.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But
I mean,
did
that's
she claim like to agree with the statement? Or was it completely like, I'm calling you out, we're not believing anything else you say?
Let's see.
Does it say
Marriage.
that she like said yes to this? Because I would assume
Ah,
not many people knowing that, hey, you're probably going to end my life if I agree to you calling me a witch.
it really doesn't give much information on like her trial
Hmm.
There's
or
not a
anything
lot of
like that.
information on any of their trials, to
I was
be
gonna
honest.
Yeah.
say, did a lot of them get trials, or was it just stated of like,
No.
we're gonna say you get one, but you
Um.
don't actually get a fair one?
Well,
Uh.
in order to convict them, keep them, they did trials. Doesn't mean it's a fair trial,
Okay.
but
Well,
Yeah.
here's the information that I have about the trial. Okay, so over a 7-month span, 185 people were accused, but only
Hmm.
59 went to trial.
Okay. Is that include like, so you're saying 59 of them went to trial, over 100 were accused. How many of those accused were either put immediately, like, I don't want to say to death, but like, how many
If
of those were actually like
if
freed compared
if
to not?
they said that if they admitted to being a witch, they were sent back to prison, and if they were found guilty, they were hanged,
Mm.
which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
wait. Not all of them were hung though. Someone asked to be pressed to death, I
nope,
believe.
he didn't ask.
Oh, okay. Well, they pressed
No,
someone to
we'll
death.
get to him too.
Okay.
I was gonna
Okay.
say
Okay.
pressing to death like a sandwich kind of situation.
Let's
She'll explain it when
yeah.
we get to it. Just
So
to wait.
so we've
Like a
gone through
panini.
March. We've gone through March. So in April of
Hmm.
1692, we have 7 more who are accused of being a witch. We
Hmm.
have Elizabeth Proctor, Sarah Cloyce, John Proctor,
Hmm.
Giles Corey, who is Martha Corey's husband, Abigail Hobbs, Bridget Bishop, and Mary Warren.
Okay.
Giles Corey was the one that was pressed to death. He was 71 years old, and they decided to torture him into admitting he was a witch. So they took him to a field and buried him with cinder blocks and stones,
Hmm.
which is pressing, and he died under all of that weight.
So imagine you're laying there, they put a stone on your chest,
Yeah.
and they put another one,
And then
and
another one,
another one,
and
and
another one
another
until
one.
your body can't
Yes.
handle it. Yeah.
So that's what pressing is. So
So
Okay.
yes,
Giles
imagine a panini.
Panini.
Giles Corey died at 71 years old on September 19th, 1692. Moving along in the timeline,
Hmm.
we come to what is that, April? We come to May, where we have one, two, three. Oh, we have another accusation. I have a lot of names here, but I don't know when they were all accused. Okay, but Reverend George Burroughs was accused of being a witch on May 4th, 1692. A reverend was accused.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I assume they don't take these accusations, even though they're probably making them left, right, and center. They don't take them lightly.
Well, they put you through a trial, sure.
Yeah, so he must have done something to
He
like,
did
He
something
was
to offend someone in
yeah,
power, and they just
they went
decided,
witch.
yeah.
And it is what it is.
Did you know that back then there was a stereotype? Is it a stereotype or a rumor? Something, I don't know. Where they said that witches were unable to recite the Lord's Prayer without a hitch.
That it was a superstition.
That's
They
it. A
believed, yeah.
superstition. Yeah, that witches were not able to say the Lord's Prayer
I mean,
without messing up.
I mean, I can do it.
Well, it's important to know that.
No, I know. I'm like, I can do it.
So of course we have all of these people accused and everything. But the first casualty wasn't even a hanging. The first casualty of the Salem Witch Trials was a prison death.
It was Sarah Osborne, right? Yeah.
Yep, on May 10th, 1692. Yep.
Yeah. And then there are people like there's a lot of people that actually don't even like learn about, you know how you learn about Salem witch trials and in school.
Uh-huh.
A lot of these names didn't even ring a bell.
No.
And reading this.
I tell you what, like I was surprised to see as many men as I have seen in here. But
Yeah, because the
honestly,
only two I remember is the Reverend and
Giles.
Giles, because he was the only one that was not hung.
So I
Hang
never learned
hung.
about the Salem witch trials until this podcast. Honestly, like
Really?
I
Oh, we
knew
learned it in
relatively what
school.
had happened and like whatever, but no. And I'm reading this and I'm getting more and more depressed as we go on. Like
Yeah,
this
it's
is
like,
fucked up. Like people were fucked in the head. What the hell?
Oh yeah, no, and there's a lot of theories on like because the symptoms the girls experienced were real, like they had seizures, they had this kind
mhm.
of stuff. But we know today that of course it's not because of witchcraft or witches.
Yeah.
So like they try and figure out like they believe Argot poisoning stuff like that. But you will never know like what actually started to happen or why the girls actually really decided to sit there and point the fingers at these first couple of women. Like, what did these women do that made you so either upset or scared or whatever in order to destroy their life and cause this mass hysteria?
Well,
Right.
like Laura said, one of them even agreed to being a witch. So that makes me think, okay, maybe did this person slip that into their food and actually like maybe try to, kill them, or
Or
were they like an apothecary, which they knew?
or Tituba admitted she was a witch because she
Mm-hmm.
was tortured into it.
Maybe.
She was a woman of color. She was a servant.
Mm-hmm.
She was a woman of color servant to the reverend whose child was afflicted.
Mm-hmm.
So, did he torture her into it? Did
Well,
he?
Well,
depending on
and
the
if
person, you can only
yeah.
withstand so much before you, because you even see it throughout history all the time of people admitting they did things that they didn't do because
Mm-hmm.
sleep deprivation, torture, mental torture, like all these different things, and people are going to say sooner or later what you want them to say, what that person wants them to say to get it to stop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where there's a reason why interrogation, you cannot physically torture anyone. Well, you're not supposed to.
Yeah,
So,
you're not supposed to, because yeah, at some point you're gonna break and you're just gonna say it to say it just to make it stop. So, I mean, but you have to also think like Jesse's been saying, there's, that poison going around. Did she put it in the food? Like, was it intentional?
well, if that's the case, why didn't the reverend get sick or his wife?
Yeah, so
Well,
it
because
was
she could
just
have
the,
separated it out into bowls
but
and
then there
just
were
given the
other
girls.
people throughout the town that were afflicted by it too, that Tituba had no, and
Contact with.
True.
it even happened after Tituba was in prison. People were still having these weird symptoms and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they believe it was more of a like the grain got affected that season.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And some people may not have been able to afford bread. That's why they didn't get affected. And there are some people who just choose not to, or they didn't consume as much and stuff like that. And everybody's body is different.
Yeah, that's very true.
The other thing you have to think of too, there's things like mass hysteria. As far as torture is concerned, sometimes it isn't about pain. Sometimes it's just delirium, because the torture usually isn't just physical pain. It could be starvation, it could be humiliation, it could be all sorts of a barrage of abuse and
Sleep
sensory
deprivation.
deprivations. And because of that, people will often start to believe what you tell them due to the amount of stress that they're under, and they will admit to things that they have no recollection of, but their mind will just invent something in order to be like, if this is the only way to get out of this, and you're too stubborn to admit it, then your brain's going to hijack you and just say, okay, now this really did happen, and you believe it and concoct the memory, even though it's completely false, just as a survival tactic. And it's not even that they're trying to give in and give the information. They may have all the willpower to die a truthful person, but their brain just hijacks them.
Yeah.
So we said that there were 19 people hanged for their crimes of being found guilty of being witches. Those hangings took place over a course of 4 different days. So on June 10th, 1692, Bridget Bishop was the first one hanged that set off this spiraling. It must have been that easy to kill someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But some of the people that sentenced her to death decided to step down in the role of the court because they couldn't handle it. So the same day she died was also a turning point for the courts. On July 19th, 1692, we had 5 more that were hanged. They were Susanna Martin from Amesbury, Elizabeth Howe from Topsfield, Rebecca Nurse from Salem Village, Sarah Good from Salem Village, and Sarah Wilds from Topsfield. Rebecca Nurse was a mom of 8.
Damn.
Yeah,
Well, that
crazy.
explains why they thought she was a witch. They're like, there's no way she survived 8 kids. It's crazy.
The third day of hanging was on August 19th, 1692.
Mm-hmm.
This is the day that Reverend George Burroughs was hung. And the reason why I bring this up is because the man recited the Lord's Prayer perfectly right before they hanged him.
That's definitely a witch.
No, because the superstition was that they
If they
couldn't
could
say it.
recite it that they weren't,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
or if they couldn't say it that they were, but if they could recite the whole thing that they were not. But
Yeah.
I feel like if you can recite the entire thing verbatim, you must be a witch, or you have to have like a photographic memory or
He
something.
was a fucking reverend. Come on.
Oh, sorry. My brain blacked that part out. So then, yeah, fucking memorizing and reading it all day, every day. Like, yeah, you got like a cheat sheet right there.
All right. So the 5 that were hung or hanged, the 5 that were hanged on August 19th, 1692 were Reverend George Burroughs from Wells, Maine, George Jacobs from Salem Town, John Proctor and John Willard from Salem Village, and Martha Carrier from Andover. Is it Andover or Andover?
I think it's Andover.
Okay. The third and final day of hanging. I had to count. They hung 8 people that day. They hanged Alice Parker and Anne Pudator. Anne Pudator. I don't know how to say her name. Both from Salem Town. Martha Corey, Mary Easty from Salem Village. Mary Parker, Samuel Wardwell from Andover. Wilmer Reed from Marblehead. And Margaret Scott from location unknown. So those are the 19 people that were hanged in the Salem Witch Trials. I also have some names from people who died in prison.
How many died in prison?
They don't specify how many died in prison, but I have 5 names.
feeling it was probably a good amount because, like, if you're kind of calling everybody out left, right, and center for being a witch, it makes me feel like it was probably like overpopulated, you
And
know.
disease ridden.
Yeah, and disease written like not clean,
And it doesn't
same
help that they
toilet or
were.
sitting in the same places.
It doesn't help that the town was disease ridden too, because you have to think,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't know how to grow their own food, so they were starving. Plus, they had diseases on top of starvation, and like, because what medicine was what back then. So you put that
Practically, if you
Herbs.
had a,
on the
yeah, herbs.
prison. So
Yeah.
I have four names for the people who died in prison. Of course, we know Sarah
Mm-hmm.
Osborne of
Yes.
Salem Village. We have Roger Toothaker from Billerica. I don't know where that is. Then we have Ann Foster from Andover and Lydia Dustin from Reading. Also, want to note that they had somewhere placed a record that Dorothy Good, the 4-year-old, died before July 19th, 1692.
Aww.
So she died before her mother. And then, of course, we have Giles Corey from Salem Village, who was pressed to death on September 19th, 1692. So those are the names that I have of just death records.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of people
Yeah, that is a ridiculous amount of people.
for food poisoning. I mean, witchcraft.
I mean, you do have to think like back then, getting food poisoning. See, I feel like it would be a kind of a common occurrence as because like you don't have what we have now to prevent a lot of things from going bad as quickly as they did back then. But I guess it depends on like the severity of how bad it went off.
You also have to think that food poisoning is manageable by today's standards, right? Like,
Hmm.
there's plenty of homeless people that eat expired or rotten food, survival situations, and what is food poisoning versus actual poisoning? We still don't necessarily know all of these things for fact, right? Like, there's a lot of speculation of what could have been or what happened during that time period, but we don't know. It's not like we
Hmm.
have autopsy reports that could show us that these people were actually suffering from food poisoning versus concocting some rare disease versus actual eating poison, right? Like they mixed some herb they shouldn't have, or something got spilled with a chemical.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons why I keep like mentioning, I keep saying like, oh, apothecary. They're mainly the people that go through herbs, create or figure out like, oh, that'll help with this or oh, that'll kill you. Because you have to think like trial and error. I'm sure people have eaten things they shouldn't have eaten and got poisoned and died?
Right.
So it's like either something got added that shouldn't have been added that nobody knew about that was just spread around the town or kind of makes me think like oh the plague like something or somebody must have gotten sick the severe symptoms or whatever what the girls experienced but I guess healed from and then you know the earlier symptoms may be simple but everybody's concerned because they saw a seizure happen, or heard that these could be symptoms and assume it's just, oh, someone's casting a spell on the people that they dislike.
And there's also, just standard human things that we die from all the time, right? Like, so, for example, you could have allergies. Back then, they
Hmm.
didn't necessarily know what allergies were. Um, so if you happen to be allergic to something and you ate it and died, they would just be like, well, it must be a witch because I ate the same food. I didn't die. Oh, then you must be the witch,
Yeah.
And then it goes back and forth like that.
So, out of all of the witches that were accused, 75% of the accused were female. I'm sorry, out of all of the people that were accused, 75% of them were female. And they said that the reasoning was not because of land and widowing and all of that. They believed that women were more susceptible to the devil and the stuff that he could give them.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like nodding my head. I realize you can't see me like shaking
Nope, we can't see
my
you.
head.
Nope.
Sorry. But like, no, yeah, no, because I don't like to say like to sit and say like, oh yeah, I agree, because I don't agree with, women and the devil. I don't know how to say that appropriately, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
So
sad as fuck.
so are we in January of 1963 yet?
We could talk about that, but I have a few more little pieces of information that I want to spout out. Like,
Okay.
the accused people were not allowed to have lawyers; they had to defend themselves.
That's fucked up.
Yep. So those who confessed to witchcraft were spared from being executed and sent back to prison, but those who were executed were not given proper burials. They were just open up the earth, throw them in. That's it. Which is kind of sad too.
You said they opened up the earth and threw them in?
Yeah, they just
Pretty much dug a hole, threw him
I was
in,
gonna
and
say, so they just dug a massive hole and were like, see
Yep.
ya.
Mass grave. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense because, right, you only had two types of burial back then. You had just dig a hole and bury him, and then you had funeral rites, right? But in a lot of Christian faiths, especially, if you did anything that was sort of overly sinful, it was believed that you couldn't get a proper Christian burial. That you basically be like in Catholic Church, be excommunicated. It would basically be, okay, well, you're unclean, so we're not going to give you last rites because there's no point. You're a demon or a devil or whatever.
So what happened in January of 1693?
So let's see, where was it? 13 women and 5 men, blah 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 blah. Where is it? The Superior Court of Bleh.
Bless you.
So they formed to replace the witchcraft court. And so before this, they allowed spectral evidence. I realize you guys can't see my air quotations. This belief in the power of the accused to use their invisible shape or specters to torture their victims had sealed the fates of those tried by the court of Oyer and Termine.
Yep.
The new court released those awaiting trial and pardoned those awaiting execution. In effect, the Salem Witch Trials were over. And as years passed, apologies were offered and restitution was made to the victims' families. Historians and sociologists has examined the most complex episodes in our history so that we may understand the issues of that era, blah, 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 blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, 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 blah. But no, so literally it didn't even last a year.
Right.
And yet how many people died, how many families were torn apart, how many people were ostracized from their community because just so they could sit there and not be tortured, just agreed to say that they believe they did something they didn't, and they got apologies and restitution for them killing innocent people probably.
Yeah.
But I mean that happens all the time. Well, yeah, and I guess in a way I look at it as Salem's such a huge tourist attraction. In a way, it's making it not better, but these people whose lives were destroyed, they're never going to be forgotten because of this town. Like, there's a site for Giles where it says Giles Corey pressed to death September, I think, 19th.
Yep.
1692, and people put flowers down on it. They have stones for, I think, every single person who died during the Salem Witch Trials, and people will go put flowers and stuff like that. So in a way, these people aren't forgotten.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it any better.
I mean, I'm glad that they're making it so that these people are not forgotten and that this history, people will still continue to learn about it and the people who died. It's just it sucks. Like I can't put that in any better. Like it sucks in general that this is what a lot of people went through.
Can you imagine how scary it would be?
Well, could you imagine like being that 4-year-old girl and then all of a sudden like they take your mom?
Mm.
And so I have a
Probably the
question.
only person you've known in your entire life, maybe besides your dad or any siblings.
What's your question, Jericho?
So, slightly off topic, but why do we think that the Salem Witch Trials got so much publicity and to this day is such a popular topic amongst people compared to other atrocities that have happened on our soils that dwarf what happened with Salem, but it's almost rarely, if ever, talked about or brings such a media attention as Salem does.
I personally believe it's the ancestors of the people who were hanged caused so much noise
Hmm.
that it was not easily forgiven or forgotten. Because some of these people weren't resolved of their crimes until 2001. Can you
Fuck.
imagine the noise these families made?
Just to get justice for the people that were killed. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I would imagine it to be, but I could be way off base.
Well, I think there's also something behind it of like, you know, ooh, spooky, ooh, witch kind of thing. But I think that's a
But
very small
I think where
portion.
he's coming from is so, and I'm not trying to diminish these people, but you had 25 people who passed away in this
Hmm.
because of being accused of being witches, but yet there's not like mass hysteria and this huge big thing about, like, let's say when Catherine of Aragon's mother was ousting all the Moors, and because they're Moors and they are not Catholics and stuff like that. Why aren't people as outraged about that when it's pretty much the same thing? People died because they had different beliefs and stuff like that. Why is there such a mass hysteria about this one specific thing when there are bigger witch hunts throughout the whole world that happened but aren't as popular as the Salem witch trials? And part of it, I think, for at least people in the United States, is because it happened in the United States. But also, a lot of people aren't as educated and don't look into a lot of stuff like this to know that there were bigger, like, Bloody Mary. The reason why her name is Bloody Mary is because she killed so many people who were Lutherans. But I think also it helps, like, this big thing is that Salem does make it a big tourist attraction for people to want to come see.
Yeah, they do kind of
They
parade it
they
around like it's some big
they
thing to
have all
look
these
at.
gothic clothing shops and all these, that they have the Satanic Temple there. They've kind of made it popular by drawing in the people who either believe in the occult or believe in this kind of stuff or want to go ghost hunt. Like, they made it an attraction to make people want to learn more about it too, to a point too, I think.
I think it's a combination
Hmm.
of it myself. Like
Hmm.
in the early days, right, the East Coast had all the big, exciting new stuff. The West was exciting because it was rural and it was wild and it was fantasized, but the East had all the technology, had all the commerce and trade. So I think because it happened on the East Coast, with the families talking about it, with news outlets talking about it, with it being the big news of the time, right?
Hmm.
I think it just had that media whirlwind that really put it and cemented it into culture. And then it just kept getting resurrected because like there was occult things, there was
People
tourism,
apologizing
there was all
and
this sort of stuff that it drug it back out. Because you look
Hmm.
at something like the Trail of Tears, for example, right? 15,000 people died in that. Entire
yeah,
families were forced marched across terrain with no supplies through the dead of winter, through crazy things, and you don't hear any about that. There's not a bunch of Trail of Tears, you know, souvenir shops and kind of stuff along the way, right? And so I'm illustrating the point that I think media has a lot to do with preserving what is and what isn't history and propagating, rumors versus myth versus fact. all that kind of stuff. So I think that's what happened with Salem, in my opinion. I think that it's a good story, whether you fantasize it or whether you tell it as it is. It's either a very tragic and uh, teachable lesson about poverty and the corruption of power and just, mob mentality, that sort of thing, right? Or if you fantasize it, it's very, there's a lot of books and movies about actual witches dying during that time and Satan and all this kind of stuff, right? So I think that's why it's had the staying power that it has, is because it's so interwoven with what is Americana, right? Like Halloween is celebrated in other countries besides ours, but we have a very different take on what Halloween is. And so when you have something that's basically a national holiday, right? And then now you have this intriguing story about it, it's much easier to gravitate that towards that, right?
Do we have anything else on the trials? Do we know why they ended?
They ran out of
Probably,
people to kill.
I was gonna say probably because somebody was like, "Yo, stop doing that shit," and here's why.
Like, who's gonna bake the bread tomorrow? Okay, don't kill that person.
Well, we killed Susie. Susie was the only baker. I don't know. I'm trying to make a little light of it. It's a very serious topic. Um,
So from what I have found out, the ended primarily due to the intervention of Governor William Phipps, or Phipps, combined with public skepticism towards the trials, because a lot of people even back then were like, "Why are we
yeah, why are
calling
we doing this?
doing
Yeah.
this? Like when like some of the most upstanding people are being accused." Now, to be fair, though, and even on our own timeline here, in our age gaps, there's been stuff in the media that took people by surprise, like Michael Jackson, right? He's always been kind of goofy, but no one expected him to be an actual child molester, right? Until he got later in his career and was hanging out with kids and whatever. But early on, you would have never suspected he was doing stuff like that, right? Epstein files and, like R. Kelly and all these kind of things that we've seen. Sometimes
Mm.
we put people on a pedestal, either locally or globally, and or nationally, and we kind of feel like they're above reproach, like because they're in the public eye so often. We're like, the persona they provide us must be who they are, as opposed to there being a person underneath with trials and struggles and realities, right? When those things come to the
Hmm.
surface, it's not always pretty. And even in the past, you see a lot of that, like JFK, right? People talk about JFK all the time, but he was kind of a terrible president, kind of a terrible person. Like, but he gets a lot of popularity for being a cool guy, right?
Right.
Uh,
Okay. So, the court system that tried all of these witches, right?
Hmm.
It was the court of Oyer and Terminer, and it ran from May 27th, 1692 to October 29th, 1692. Then in January of 1693, the Supreme Court of Judicature, I can't say it, Judicature was established by Governor William Phipps. Mm, Nope, I'm sorry, that's not correct. Correct. This court was established in January 1692, but Governor William Phipps is the one that stopped the court of Oyer and Terminer in October of 1692. And it says here that he halted these proceedings partially due to the fact that his wife was being accused of being a witch, and
So he only stepped
because
in,
partly because the new court system that they were putting together disallowed the spectral evidence.
but he only stepped in when it involved his family and nobody else's.
Yep, there you go.
I mean, I would love to say, "Hey, way to be a team player," but at the same time, like, bro, you only stepped in when it benefited you.
Yep, yep. So, and of course, growing public concern and the increasing number of accusations was waning, was a good reason to put an end to it as well, apparently. So by May 1693, Phipps issued pardons for everyone in custody on witchcraft charges, effectively releasing them from prison. Later, in January of 1697, the Massachusetts General Court declared a day of fasting for the tragedy, and the leading judge, Samuel Sewall, publicly apologized for his role. The Massachusetts legislature passed bills in 1711 to restore the good names of the condemned and provide financial restitution to their families. How many years is that? What's 1711 minus 1693?
You said 1711, 1693?
Yep. 18 years?
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go. 18 years after the trials ended, they started clearing the names. Some of the names weren't cleared until 2001. Yeah, so my wife is accused, so let's put an end to all of this.
Yeah, it's again, it's like you could have stopped at like children because you said children were also involved in this.
Yep.
Like the line can't be this benefits me, so now I'm going to step in. At some point, you would think somebody had enough humanity to go, you know what? Enough people have died. You've brought children into the mix. Like, stop.
I mean,
You
it's
have
nice
way
to.
too much faith in humanity
I don't have
thinking
that
they
much
they
faith in
cared
humanity,
up
but like,
until it affects them personally.
but you would think like children, like,
You would think kids getting shot in school all the time would make things stop, but yet it happens all the time and we remember it for a week or two and then we go on with our merry lives.
well, no,
Uh,
I'm agreeing with you that that's fucked.
but
You and I are both on the
I'm
same
using
page
it as
there.
an
I
example. Like
know.
all throughout history, people don't want things to stop until it personally affects them. And then if you have enough power to sit there and make it stop, then you will. But
Hmm.
until it personally affects a person, how many of us actually like really care to a point? Like we care, but are we going to drop everything we're doing in our lives to try and make a change, though, technically?
Yeah.
I think that's a good point to make, is that there's a distinguishing amount of indifference that people have, and it's programmed into us biologically. Like, there's only a certain group that you care about, and only so many people that you really hold any real feelship towards. Um, and compassion is not the same thing as logical uh action, right? So like the example of you gave of just dropping everything to go suddenly save the whales, or children, or whatever you happen to be passionate about. The reality is that most people don't even know how to begin going about that, like school shootings, right? So how do we stop school shootings, right?
I will be the
Like,
first to admit I don't know how to, but the people who are supposed to have the power in order to stop that need to do something about it.
sure.
I agree. I'm in the same boat as her. It's like I don't know 100% how to make it stop, but it needs to stop.
Well, that's the point I'm making. I don't necessarily agree with just that. I think it's all doom and gloom and humanity is absent from most people. I think it has to do more with the fact that you guys don't want to see bad things happen, but you don't necessarily have the resources, ability, or knowledge on how to stop the problem. So rather than altering the course of your entire life in a vain pursuit to attempt to do something, you recognize that your time and energy is better spent elsewhere. And there's other people who are actively pursuing that, who have not only the time and resources, but the passion to go about it, right? And there's
Hmm.
also a certain level of ignorance and humbling that has to be acknowledged in oneself, right? Like I am not an NBA basketball player. It doesn't matter if I just suddenly love basketball and I want to be on an NBA team. No amount of practice is going to make me NBA worthy. I'm just physically lacking the right body type, and I'm also lacking a severe amount of skill to order to compete at that level. That no amount of practice, given my age, is going to put me anywhere close to being there, right? So I think the same thing goes with stuff like that. Like it's out of sight, out of mind, right? Today we're so used to things being thrust in our face with social media, with the internet, that in the witch trial, only the people really there at the time really knew what was going on. 3 towns over, there's no guarantee that they knew what was happening. They were
Yeah, because you may not know everybody in Salem may not have even known someone 3 towns away. So that town is oblivious to what's going on. Nowadays, we know what's happening on every corner of the earth, usually, or
right.
there's a way to find out.
And even despite all this technology we have, we don't notice people getting close to suicide. We don't notice our own children suddenly deciding to take a gun to school because they're hiding being bullied from us, right? There's things that can be right under our noses, and through no fault of our own necessarily, they can escape our notice. So I think when we look at it through that lens, a tragedy like this is becomes all too real and possible even in today's world. We'd like to think we wouldn't fall for things, but look at what happened with COVID, right? Look. People said, "Oh, there's going to be a shortage on toilet paper." Suddenly, people are robbing stores and ransacking toilet paper like it's the last thing on earth, right? Even though our supplies are more than sufficient to handle the entire populace, otherwise we'd always be short. People acted like all of a sudden toilet manufacturing was just going to be gone, right?
Yeah.
Or someone says, "Well, vaccines cause autism. It doesn't matter if there's 99,000 tests and papers and studies and everything that says it doesn't. It only takes one person out there to say it does, and now you got mass hysteria. You have people not vaccinating, and their kids are dying from curable diseases that have been essentially eradicated for 200 years now,
Hmm.
right? So that type of panic hysteria, that type of thing comes with having access to a lot of knowledge, but not having the wisdom to question that knowledge, right? And so I think that's what we saw here with the trial. I think a
So,
lot of people jumped the bandwagon and just said, "Hey, let's do this," without really investigating.
so what happened, do you think, to Betty Paris and Abigail Williams?
I
Are you
would
asking
have,
me, or is that an open floor
Open floor
yeah,
question.
I would have, I mean, my answer is a little bit of a smart ass response. I'm not gonna lie.
What's your answer?
They they're dead.
Oh, very good. Okay, so
Again, that's why I said it was a little bit of a smart ass answer because I was like, well, what do you think happened to these people?
so
Well, it's
Abigail
2025.
Williams.
Sorry.
Abigail Williams disappeared from historical records after her last court appearance on
Hmm.
June 3rd, 1692. We have no idea what happened to Abigail Williams. We have
Interesting.
speculations, but we don't
It's
know.
a conspiracy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
much.
Betty lived a long and happy life, and she was she was your flat earther to the core.
Wasn't expecting
What do
that
you
one.
mean by that? I don't understand.
So, despite everything that happened, right, and everything that was found out, and everything that was overturned, and everything that happened across the board, right, basically saying you guys are full of it, she never recanted anything she said. And when when people had asked her about it much later in life, she still said, "No, no, no, they were definitely witches. Like they're
Wow.
100% witches." And and she lived to be 77. She
Yep.
got married,
Good for
Had
whole
her.
kids.
thing. Yep.
But she never admitted that, or she never apologized for her role in the trials.
I mean, what was her role again?
She was the first one to throw out accusations.
Ah, okay. I was about to say something completely different. That's why I asked for clarification.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we don't know about the trials that we want to touch base on?
I mean, we never really touched on, I mean, we've stated that kids were involved, but is there much, like, how
No,
much
shit,
research? Is there just
that
nothing that
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 4-year-old.
that
just the
4-year-old
one? Okay,
There
just
I
the
were
thought it was
one.
more.
more.
There were more children, quote unquote, children like whole families accused, but I think they were older children, like adult
Hmm.
children.
Yeah, because I know
Yeah.
we've stated before, and again, children is all the way up to like what, 18 at this point in
Uh,
regards to pediatrics.
mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, if it most likely if they're at teenage years, they probably weren't stating them as like kids. They probably considered them as adults at that point.
Right.
If you're old enough to work and do hard labor, besides the 4-year-old, obviously, most likely they considered you an adult.
Right.
So, okay. I just wasn't sure if there were more like stories in regards to small kids or if it just stopped at the 4-year-old.
Okay.
I had one other remark to make
Okay.
before we close out.
Mm-hmm.
For all our listeners out there, take this historic lesson and to heart, because as outlandish as it seems by our standards today to victimize and to go to the extreme lengths that people did over rumors and hearsay, I ask you to look at social media and the cancel culture of today, how we are so willing to believe rumors of people that have been unvetted or about people we know to have been good and shown us nothing else, only to have seen them torn apart, their livelihood, and their legacy and reputation destroyed and ripped apart. In the end, to find out that they were innocent, that someone just accused them. This witch trial is not only not unbelievable and unlikely to happen in today's world, it happens all the time.
It's not even just that. It's do, like, if you hear something, do your research. Like, there was a thing on social media that AI created. Like, someone used AI to create the Chiefs coach, saying they were getting rid of a player, and the mass hysteria in the comment section, people freaking out about it. Just always, I'm using that as an example because it was the simplest one to use that I have. But it's, do your research. If you hear something, maybe look it up before you start spreading it around.
Yeah, I would say really look into the topics that you're wishing to discuss. You know, have your opinions, but also have your facts. Somebody may know something that you don't know, you know?
Okay, so I guess that's going to be it for today's podcast.
Like, subscribe, follow, comment,
Share.
Do all the things.
do all the things with
Come
things
back
and
next
things.
time where we talk about the most haunted, spooky places in America. I'm so
I love
excited.
this month.
So excited.
Thanks for being here, guys. Bye.
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 Did you like my witch?
Yes.
I did. I was not
I thought that was-
expecting it, actually.
I thought that was Jesse for a second. I went, damn.